this basin, and Blomidon. I mean, that's what we're establishing. That line, because I stuck it on a not a great picture, when we get down to really refining this, and what we hope for, just to speak to Bev's comment, is we do hope to do some 3D massing to show how this plays out. There's also a bit more work of how this view plane impacts outside of the study area. So I really have my head down just looking at a really small area right now, but it does impact outside of that onto Main Street. And so some of that will come as we progress the work. And then just on the building height piece, this is sort of how I've been thinking about it, just to sort of say this now to be up front. I think there's been wide acceptance of building height up to 4 stories. And I think we can handle that by site plan approval. And what we've talked about before is things beyond that. And I have 18 meters there. That's generally 7 stories. Can be considered by development agreement, is how I've been thinking about these zoning regulations. We haven't detailed them, but that's sort of where we are today. But I'll pass it over to the chair.
Okay, I will open that discussion up. Council will ultimately set what the final height can be. So this is a good time to give your thoughts, probably helped by the discussion that we have just had on allowable, excuse me, building height. Kelly.
With the site plan for height 1 to 4, and then 4 and up needs development agreement, is there a scenario where, because it's kind of easier to only go to 4, we're sort of incentivizing construction just to 4? Like, is it almost a limitation to some degree, because taking a development agreement is much more work and process and lengthy, so there's less incentive for one to go beyond 4 stories, even if that might be kind of the better option given a certain scenario?
Yes. I mean, I think most developers would come in, the ones that come in and see me, ask me what they can do by not doing a development agreement. Yeah. And so if we can get to a place where we can enable by site plan the full suite of buildings on these sites, that would be a much more beneficial situation, particularly after going through the process we're going through. Yeah. And the amount of time we're taking. So
there's an opportunity to amend that for this.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Great.
Devin, can you reduce that so that I could see if there's hands up behind you? Deputy Mayor Madeira Voss.
Thank you. I just have a question. If Devin could clarify, when he's talking about floors, are these all above ground? Because I know that was a question in, believe Woodman's Grove is considered 4 stories, but we have only 3 above ground, correct? So when we talk about stories, for the purposes of our discussion, we are only talking about above ground stories, correct?
Yes.
And
yes.
Can you also tell me how many floors or stories are in tower?
I heard someone say 13.
13. Thank you. That's all. Take my hand down.
Other comments? What's your feeling on building height? Number of stories, understanding we're talking about above ground, not garage. Sure.
I just wanted to also mention that I think everyone would benefit from seeing some sort of profile drawings or some 3D renderings. I do think it's hard, given the plan view that I'm showing, to imagine what any type of height looks like on this land. So again, we would bring that back, but we definitely need some parameters to go and do all that work.
You're looking some direction, either like don't bring us anything above 4 or go up to 8 or. Ellie?
Has it been discussed in terms of like road layouts with respect to building height? Just because it's my thought that you could have the most architecturally beautiful building of, 7 stories that's just kind of gorgeous, but if it's in a cul-de-sac with no accessible connection to roads or pathways, people aren't going to like it or want to live there. And so much of it depends on the overall layout when it comes to things like that.
I'm just going to make the folks on the screen disappear for a second. But so when we're talking about where the density is going and the road network, this is the road network. And
That's
so
it. There's no other roads.
yeah, the white lines that you see on here are the main road network. So you have high density apartment building. Where we're talking about building height is mostly in this corner. And aspects of the Maple Ridge lands and potentially along Main Street. So there's really not that many places that we're talking about, but I would say that they're all very well connected. They're adjacent to or very close to open space. And I mean, this site is also very close to downtown at the end of the day. I'm just going to bring this down again.
Good.
I might just say one more thing
absolutely.
quickly. It was just that I think back to the question around what do we think about height? I think, again, it kind of just comes down to look and feel and how it, fits with the overall vibe of the community that we want to develop and have, and the coziness of it, I guess, if that's the way to describe it. Not all buildings of 7 stories are created equal.
Yeah. Sure. Councillor Elliott.
I'm wondering, it's quite a chunk of high density shown on the map. Are we talking 4 buildings, 6 buildings? Like, how many are envisioned? Because that matters to me. When you say, Director Lake, that there's potential high density on Main Street, like I have alarm bells going off. So there's questions there. I could see a 7-story building maybe, but not half a dozen.
I don't have a good answer for that. I mean, up in the area that these gentlemen are looking at, Glenn, do you have the number of buildings up here generally?
I think at one time we had 6, but 7 stories. Height means less buildings, less total footprint area, probably less buildings. Although we were asking it 7-story outside of the east side area, and there was high density.
All right, just going back to my other point, like I think that this really matters, right? Because if you have 2 buildings in that high density area that are really tall, then you're going to have a whole bunch of space between them, which needs to be connected to be accessible. And I mean, space is good, but you also don't want it to feel too spacious. And then if you have 6 high density buildings, then I think, again, it's feels like a lot, and I guess it comes a lot down to the look and feel, right? So I think that the detail in that really matters.
Thank you. Corey?
I think for me, it kind of comes back to the trade-off in terms of if you were to go for 7 stories in terms of height, what is that, space that was going to be, 5 or 6, 4-story buildings, what is that going to be used for? And I agree with wanting to ensure there isn't a void there, so it kind of looks like a deserted piece of land, but how is that engaging for those who live there, for the community? And I think, connecting the buildings or having parks that are inviting or benches or however it can be kind of conceived or created, I think is going to be vital, because I think there really is going to be kind of a balancing of height. And for me personally, I think you kind of have to be in favor of the 7 stories to achieve the density that we're looking at, but to also be conscious of the trade-off in terms of what are we going to get for that excess space that's now not being used for development upwards. So I just think it's going to be a balance once we do get to kind of the finer details and in the trenches of the details. What is that space going to be used for, and how do the buildings look?
Actually, no, it's just the committees who speak at our committee meetings. Yes.
So kind of
Mike.
piggybacking on that, like the idea of a 7-story building, I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. I think 3D would help. I guess a question or a concern I would have would be if you go from a 3-story building to a 6-story building, I'm assuming you're doubling the number of units and residents. And then to me, that means you're doubling the amount of parking. So if the space you're freeing up is going to end up being paved because we need to have double the parking in that, then I'm not really sure that that's the best use of the space. Like I'm hearing a lot about the green space around and between in the parkland, but I'm not sure where we are with active transportation, but if everybody who moves in there into a unit has 1 or 2 cars, they have to go somewhere.
Thank you. I see the deputy mayor, but just before and then Corey, deputy mayor, and then Corey. It sounds like this committee would like to see some massings, I guess, 7. I'm also hearing, I haven't heard anybody say this time, I don't want to see more than 3. I don't see what more than 4. There seems to be some flexibility. Am I reading the room correctly? But clearly some to Mike's comments, like what does it mean if you have higher buildings? Is it going to be a place that I want to sit around, or is it going to be parking lot? I think that's it. I think that's really important. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, Madame, you've touched on a number of my thoughts around parking, because I guess I've assumed that in any of the buildings, whether they're 3, 4, 7, that somehow underground parking would be provided in the same way that it's provided at Woodman's Grove. And I guess mentally I'm thinking a lot about that and how those larger apartment buildings seem to mix quite well with the homes and what it might look like if they were twice as high as they are. I'm not so sure they would mix quite as well. And so I think if we could have some kind of 3D rendering where we could actually see these things opposed, because the other thought that I have is around sunlight, not just the space under, but that the buildings aren't so close that people on the first few floors aren't being completely denied access to sunlight and things like that. So there are many things I think that we need to look at to make sure that the units themselves are comfortable and they have the kind of things we would like to see. And to be honest, I don't know where to go. I mean, I'm the higher density is fine. I understand the need to build up probably more than we're used to in town. But how far we go, I would, I'm friendly to Devin's suggestion that say 4 would be by site plan, but above that, I would really want to have a development agreement, because I would want the town to have more control over those issues, over height and proximity, and are we developing isolated little micro neighborhoods within this area that could create all sorts of challenges. So I don't know how it's possible, how we do that 3D rendering, but I think for me, that would be an important step for us to move to. Thank you.
Just clarification, by site plan, certainly specifics and requirements could be put in. It's not just like build whatever. So we could certainly put in requirements in site plan that would move to Kelly's comment. Corey, and then Councillor Elliott.
And on that point of proximity, if Devin or Director Lake, if you could bring that visual just up again. I was just kind of thinking in terms of progression of something that is, high residential to a medium density to a low density, not having a change that is too abrupt in terms of going from high to low, because, I have seen situations primarily in Halifax where you'll have a high-rise building next to a single-family home, and then you lose all sense of privacy. Your 6-foot fence does nothing because there are 5 or 6 stories above you. So I just kind of wanted to bring this up again to look at kind of the transition from high to medium to low, and then to just, pass on, I guess, my opinion in terms of the planning when it's more granular, to ensure that the zones are respected in terms of that there's nothing that's too infringing or impeding, for kind of ensuring that those single family homes remain single family homes in the sense of what that provides the person who lives there.
Mr. Elliott.
Thank you. I was just reflecting on Tower Residence at Acadia, which was constructed before Wolfville had any planning documents or bylaws whatsoever. And when it was built, there was an inability of the fire department to put a fire out if one of the upper stories went up. And the parking is certainly there now. In fact, they keep adding parking. So I'm just feeling kind of grateful that we're having this discussion, that we're looking through a lens where it matters. So I just wanted to say that.
Hey, I think there was a view plane on that slide as well. Am I remembering that right? So just to sum up, so we're kind of comfortable with site plan if it is more prescriptive. And I haven't heard 12 stories, but I have heard a general, people are kind of getting their heads around 7, 6.
I don't have my head around 7 yet, let's
You
put it
don't,
that way,
okay.
but I mean, that's a discussion and.
More than 4.
Yes, definitely
Yes,
more than
okay.
4, yeah.
But not, I'm not hearing anybody saying 8 or 12.
No.
Is that a fair? Is there anybody who would?
For me personally, I don't think I could comment on that without the renderings
Yes,
being
okay.
done, because
Okay,
the change in elevation and then the site planes and what's to the right of it, if, it's offset by 4 or 5 stories, given the height change already, I have no idea what that would look like.
okay. So that's an important point, that we need to see what we're talking about. Okay, so the view plane. Devin, do you want to comment on that?
I think we're generally, I think I need to do a bit more work on the view plane, unless someone feels that we've really got it wrong. I would just continue on with the work that we're doing. As I say, there's that may be adjusted a bit, but generally I think we've captured the spirit of what that policy was intended to do, which is see Blomidon and see the Minas Basin from that bench.
I want to circle back. I know Beverly, this was important for her. Beverly, I can't see you, but is there something you want to talk further about the view plane?
I think we can wait for more work from Devin. The only point I guess I would make again is, you guys have heard me use the term kind of essence of place. I'm really concerned about the massing of, now we're talking, potentially above 4-story buildings right behind Reservoir Park, and what that will do to the visitor experience within the park. But at that elevation as well, which some of the other committee members are referring to. So, I'll just hold any further comments on it until Devin does a bit more work, as he's referring to. But I remain concerned about the high density right on the park edge.
I would concur. I am concerned about that too, as I stand up there most days or every other day, and I imagine looking out and out of my peripheral vision seeing great big buildings. That does give me some stomach anxiety. And I have wondered if there are options. I know the town owns lands on Maple. I don't know if there's possibilities of swaps, but it is, as I think Corey mentioned, you don't want to go from a low-rise house to a 8-story apartment building. Well, similarly, it is a very pastoral experience at that park, and to see what that would do to the wind tunnels. I know if you walk by the view where the view plane is now on a windy day, you can, it almost pushes you up or holds you back. It can be very windy there, and the wind coming off of the reservoirs. So that would be something that I think we need to think seriously about, and it's more the proximity from a very natural area to a large high building. It is a bit of a concern to me as well. Councillor Ingham.
Yes, I do concur with that. And I mean, I walk Reservoir Park every single day. So I hear these comments and I mean, I understand the view plane, but when you're looking and you see peripheral and people go there, it's an iconic view. People go there, they relax, they see it. I don't want to break that to like you're looking, okay, it's not directly here, but your peripheral vision goes, oh, it's right there. So we just really need to be careful on that. That's all I'm going to say.
There seems to be some consensus on that particular issue. Okay, what do we have next?
I'll just quickly introduce this. So we have a few different commercial opportunities here, some being in mixed use buildings, apartment buildings with some level of commercial on the ground floor. So on the zoning map, you've seen a few areas that we're proposing to actually zone as mixed use. It would be really an apartment type zoning where there'd be an opportunity for commercial. When we did the consultation on this, we did introduce this idea of having a little bit more of a concentrated area. And this really speaks to some of the comments that people have brought up and people having a bit of a third place to go where there's actually something to do, where there's quality public space for people to gather, particularly when there's multiple apartment buildings in one area. So we'd introduced this area off of Main Street last time, and we actually did some drawing on this because I was getting the sense that it was really hard for people to imagine what this could be. This probably isn't exactly what would be built, but we're trying to illustrate the idea here of this is Main Street at the top of the page, and the Woodman's Grove intersection is right here. They're going into the co-op.
You know Whispering Creek, it's just the other side of the pond.
Yeah, this is Olson that would be connected in to Whispering Creek here. So it's really this flat area off of Main Street, just with the proximity to Lightfoot and Wolfville, to Woodman's Grove, sort of introducing this idea. I think if we want to pursue something like this, there's obviously more work to be done. And there's obviously other ways to do this. We could have more, I would say, general zoning in this area for, just houses or something like that. Certainly from my seat, I think this is the best opportunity area for this type of sort of mixed use, public square type of application, mostly because it's right off of Main Street. And that's really where the traffic is coming in. So I'll just leave the introduction to that. And really my question here is, do we want to keep pursuing this?
Okay, thank you. Again, if you could bring our virtual people up so we can see them. Comments? Corey?
I'm supportive of the idea in concept, but I think there's also a juggling act to ensure that it supplements or complements but doesn't replace the downtown core, because we need to ensure that it is distinguished in the sense that the downtown center doesn't change, but at the same time you need to provide the services that are going to benefit the new community that's created. So I'm not sure has any thought been given in terms of limitations, the size of commercial units to kind of ensure that you're not creating a 10,000 square foot kind of superstore or something similar, that it's more kind of boutique-y and convenience store type, like where it provides a service but doesn't replace.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that we're thinking of. And I think it was brought up, we don't want to see like a strip mall plump down there. And that's why if we can get the direction to go forward and sort of program this and make it a little more prescriptive in the zoning, I think that can be the response that we get. But it's certainly not meant to replace the downtown. It's meant to be a place that people can walk to in this community where a lot of people will end up living.
Deputy Mayor. Muted.
Thank you, Mayor Donovan. I just wanted to express my support for this concept. I know that we're still a bit away from identifying what the commercial area might exactly hold and contain, but I think the idea of having a center like this where young and not so young can meet in a variety of ways and allow for a lot of the feel that I mean, I know we don't want to replace the downtown area, but there's one of the things that's so wonderful about Wolfville is the walkability, and the fact that you go downtown and you can walk to all sorts of services and amenities, and I think this piece of land is far enough out of the center that it wouldn't be easy for people living there, especially if they're older or very young children, to walk and take advantage of our downtown core. So to create a center of some kind, I think, it doesn't necessarily compete with the core that we have and would allow, more people who are going to be moving here the same kind of flow and ease and walkability that I think is in keeping with what we're trying to do with active transportation and community engagement and a sense of community. So I think purposely building a square like this or something that will bring people together, I think is very important along those lines. So I just wanted to express my support.
Thank you. Councillor Ingham.
I'm also in support of this. I do think it hits all of council's strategic plans on that. And it's not to replace anything that's downtown, but I can think of when I was growing up and I lived on Sherwood Drive, we used to cut through the field and go to a little corner store on Maple Avenue because it was longer to walk downtown. So I'm thinking about people, that have accessibility issues, that maybe it's just easier to get out and grab some milk or, and even myself, I'm like, do I want to drive downtown or even walk downtown if you don't have a car? Assuming some people may not have cars, it's going to be a lot easier to go pick up some milk or eggs, as we say, for that. So I'm in support of that as long as it doesn't take away from any businesses downtown. I just think with the amount of population that's projected to be there, that we're going to need something like that.
Councillor Elliott and then Kelly.
Thank you. I like the look, the little pathways and the possibility of meeting your neighbors, I think is really nice. But I remember that something similar was touted when the newest Woodman Grove building was being looked at by council. And I don't know if there's been any interest. Have you heard of anybody who wants to put a business in the main floor of that apartment building?
No, I think the option was there for Woodman's Grove, and I think this would be a little bit more on the perhaps required side, at least to have something there. I don't think the entirety of the ground floors need to be commercial.
No.
But I do think having something there worth going to is important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Kelly?
Yes, I'm also in support of the idea of a village center, village square. I like the idea of having a point where the community can come together and meet and connect. And I think it's a really nice complement to having additional community services in the area. If there's a daycare or a medical center or a community center, then also having a general open meeting point, I think, is a nice complement to that.
Beverly?
Yeah, I'm in support of it as well. I think I mentioned at our last meeting that, thinking about it as a gathering place, maybe doing some more planning around what is actually sort of the residential experience that we're trying to, for the residents and for the visitors. So I think there's an opportunity to really make this, to think about it if, say, we talked about it perhaps being a gathering place for artisans. So, maybe we want to do artist in residence. We want to make a tie-in with our agricultural heritage. So I think there's some other work and thinking that we need to do to really make this concept have legs, because if, as was referred to, if we just sort of have some space there and wait for the businesses to open, it wouldn't get us to anything cohesive or transformative, I guess, for the area. So I'm really excited about it, and I would agree that we don't want to create another commercial area outside of the main core of downtown. In terms of commercial, it would be things perhaps just to serve those residents in the area, but beyond those few commercial services that might be needed for people aging in place or for accessibility, let's think about what the opportunity is to create a gathering place for culture and heritage purposes.
I absolutely love this idea. I love the pictures that were in the Fathom report. I used to work for the city of Burlington in Ontario, and there was it's actually called the Village Square, which was adjacent to downtown, but it was a very kind of, looked like Charles Dickens might have walked down the street. It was done in that kind of design. I think we need to remember that there could be 3,500, 4,000 people here. So, doubling almost the permanent population of Wolfville. I'd laughed. I had a 7 o'clock Rotary breakfast this morning, and I said, wow, I parked right in front of the naked grave. If we tried to bring another 3,000, 4,000 people downtown on a daily basis, I'm concerned about that. I think there are opportunities also, not just to have a place where, I do agree, we need a place to pick up milk and eggs or whatever is the thing that you're picking up. But if we want to attract entrepreneurs, we need places for them. It's hard to be an entrepreneur and work out of your house. I did that for a while, but I didn't like it. And it was once we let our office go, but there's just no space for somebody who, well, like you, Kelly, who you travel a lot, but maybe you just want a place that you can hang your hat during the day, and you don't necessarily want that to be in your house. So I think we should be thinking about those economic drivers, whether it's a hub or a business center. Cultural spaces, I think, as well. Mike, you mentioned a retirement home or something again, and as Councillor Ingham has said, people who aren't particularly mobile, but what is so important is that those people stay within their community, not just in a place, in a house in their community, but that they are connected. And I think we could do some truly amazing creative things in this. So I'm very excited by it. I hope that you are too, although I know that's not your side, but so Beverly, your hand is up again. Go ahead. You're mute. Your sound is off.
Sorry, I meant to lower my hand, but I guess since I've got the floor, I would just say I love that idea of the entrepreneurship thing. And again, that's gathering for another reason besides just buying a product. So I think it's cool. Lower hand.
Comment. I believe we have moved through year 4, and we have 20 minutes left. Did we get the 4 points that you wanted?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And that was great. I just want to sort of remind people of the timeline just before we wrap up.
Well, we do
maybe.
the round. We have round table opportunities too.
But just so everyone is aware of what will happen is I'm hoping in February to finish up the work, and then we would schedule a meeting in front of Planning Committee where we would actually invite the public to sort of comment on what is the proposal, which would be at that point sort of the recommendation from staff. So just so everyone is aware of where we would move next.
Thank you. We're at the point, and we're not quite ready to adjourn. We have what's for the new people, a round table, which just literally means we go around the circle And if you want to make other additional comments related to our discussion today, or if you have questions or anything else you want to share planning wise, I will start at Councillor Elliott and I will go this way and then I will go up to the virtual group. We have 20 minutes, so Councillor Elliott. do you
I'm
have
good.
anything?
I don't have anything burning that I wanted to say. Appreciate being able to speak as much as I have.
Mike.
I don't have anything to add, but just, again, I'm just excited to be here and it's been interesting just getting my feet wet tonight and look forward to it.
This is a good meeting. Get your
Yeah.
feet wet. Councillor Ingham.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fairly new counselor on this committee, although I know what's going on because I am a counselor. But I just want to commend the new committee members because you guys did a great job tonight and you really added a lot to the conversation. And I know it's not easy coming in with, as much as there is on the plate right now. So thanks for that. And I'm just looking forward to lots of good discussion. So.
Kelly, you have your mic's not on. Do you have anything you want to add? Comment?
No, again, just I'm happy to be part of this process and it's just really exciting watching the town kind of go through all these changes and how different it was when I grew up here and now getting to be part of it. So that's exciting. And I think also just, coming here and listening to everybody speak and what was presented, I think that it reminds me of just kind of trying to keep an open mind and learn as much as possible, because when I read through the minutes from the last meeting, initially I was thinking in my head, oh, I'm not sure about that. I don't know about that. And then the more I listened, the more I read and the more I talked to people, those thoughts change and you can start to have more of a vision. So yeah, I'm just excited to kind of keep learning and doing more of that.
Corey.
The same for me in terms of, I appreciated being here today and kind of gaining more context to the minutes because, although daunting, I was missing a few of the things that made it easier and more palatable. So I wanted to thank everyone in the presentations and I'm looking forward to kind of just being a sponge and then touching base next week and learning more about this in more detail. And it is very exciting to see the types of discussions that we are having as, a town with various entities and parties and the ideas that are presented and how constructive the conversations can be. So overall, just happy to be part of it. And thanks for having me.
And so welcome to the three of you. Bev, anything you want to say during the round table?
I wish I could be with you tonight, but I have a nasty cold, so better I'm home here. I would like to welcome the new members as well, and I look forward to getting to know you. And yeah, that's about it. I have nothing further.
Okay. And Deputy Mayor, and the Deputy Mayor is the usual chair of this committee, by the way.
Thank you, Mayor Duff. First of all, I just wanted to thank you, Mayor Donovan, for chairing the meeting on my behalf. I'm sorry that I couldn't be there in person. But really watching it virtually and listening virtual, this is such a terrific meeting, and I'm really excited about the new members and where we are with this committee, and really looking forward to the work that we're going to do together over the next year. So. Thank you for this evening, and I look forward to our getting together in person in February, I guess. So,
well said. And just before I call for adjournment and talk about the next meeting, I think that we were very productive. And thank you to the new members. Thank you for participating so well. It's hard to come into, particularly maybe of all our committees, this one is the toughest one before you get to council. So just keep that in mind. And to the developers, I really appreciate you sitting here. I think I'm certainly speaking on behalf of myself, but I think I am speaking on behalf of town council. They'll tell me if I'm not. But this is really exciting for our town. I know when Noelle made her comments. Yeah, I know your name. I was not sure who made these comments. This town has some really important and big projects that we want to do, whether it's active transportation or a recreation facility. And frankly, we cannot do that with the population that we have now. We need this growth, but we also are very proud of the kind of town we are and the kind of feel and look and experience the town of Wolfville has. And so this is a struggle for us. We want this growth. We want to do it really well, and we really appreciate, Glenn, your comments. And I know that this is not, or I can anticipate this is not moving as fast as you would like it. I certainly understand that. We want to get this right. We also want to keep you happy and in the loop. So that's what our intent is. So thank you for being here. And our next meeting is scheduled for February the 9th at this time. And with that, if I could have a motion to adjourn. No, they don't. Only at committee of the whole do we have it beginning at the end. Thank you, Councillor Elliott, and a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Ingham. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, and we are adjourned. Thank you. I'm happy to talk to you though, Noel. Good night, everyone.